Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for another amazing Live Your Life session. Today's session is something really near and dear to my heart. It's about practicing gratitude and why giving thanks leads to resilience. And I'm so excited to have our facilitator, Dr. Rose Shelton, back with us today just to teach us a little bit more about gratitude and resiliency. Dr. Shelton, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. All right, is it coming up? We're good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So today we will be talking about practicing gratitude. I will ask some questions later, so if you want to have pen and paper ready to write those down, and they will help you to start your practicing gratitude journey. So practicing gratitude. So gratitude, what is gratitude? I use this quote because I think it sums it up pretty well. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, and a stranger into a friend. And I think this really sums it up because what we understand gratitude to be is not just about being happy, but really expanding our vision, our conscious vision, to the idea that you can have ups and downs at the same time. They don't negate, right? It just because there's a down does not mean the good does not still exist in the room. Just because there is chaos does not mean that there's not some peace somewhere in the midst of circumstance, situation, or even in your life. Because there is anger does not mean there's not love. Sometimes because we love, we are angry. And because sometimes we feel alone does not mean that there's not some form of a connection somewhere. So it's to expand you, not to create an illusion of being happy or that things that aren't so wonderful or great aren't still happening or aren't around. Gratitude is a way for people to appreciate what they actually have and not focus on what it is that they lack. It also prevents us from that constant seeking of something bigger or different or new in hopes that that other thing will be the thing that makes us happier or feel satisfied or meet the need. Sometimes there are things right in front of us, people right in front of us, or even ourselves. We might have answers that actually meet those needs that are actually enough. But because of the illusions and the distortions we sometimes have, or the focus on the one negative or the one thing that's ended or not there anymore, we create this narrative that's in contradiction to the larger reality of our lives. So gratitude helps us to refocus on what we have instead of what we lack. And though it might sometimes feel like it's contrived or inauthentic and a contradiction to what's happening at first, right? The state of gratitude can grow stronger and be utilized in practice to make this more of an authentic, larger, complex acceptance of life. Grounding is one of the things gratitude does. It grounds us in the now, right? So we don't have to chase and look for any and everything on the outside. It grounds us right now into a clarity and a clarification of what is actually needed, or a realization that needs may already be met by somehow, by some other way that we weren't paying attention to. Maybe there's a home, right? There are individuals around us that we could be grateful for or have reason to be grateful in the moment. I found in my practice that the causes of a lot of anxiety and angst and sometimes depression are connected to the limits that we create by not being grateful. It will sometimes establish this idea that we're not well because it's limited our perception and establishes a feeling that there is a lack of clarity, there's a lack of understanding, a lack of options, a lack of opportunity, a lack of choice in our circumstances, situations, or even within ourselves. And these feelings will sometimes render us powerless, right? And then it kind of feeds itself. So when we bring in gratitude, it interrupts and distorts that narrow perception and narration that life is based off of, that emotional survival narration, and helps us to open our reality to the abilities and capacities that we have that support our thriving and our freedom to try or try again, right? And so with gratitude and the practice of gratitude, we make that an intentional effort, right? An intention to be aware of and to utilize our capacities and capabilities to try again, to be free to try again, and knowing that we do have options and opportunities and choice, even when it seems like there's something that's we're up against or coming against us, like we have some freedoms and some other options. And that if you ever just feel that, like, I don't, it's not happening, it won't happen. Like if you feel that, like the tightening and the constricting that happens with that, with gratitude and the practice of gratitude, to seek wider possibility of, okay, this isn't, and this over here is possible, right? This isn't, but okay, I've got two other choices, right? It kind of frees up that experience, and it helps you to become aware, also to tap into your resilience within yourself of the past, to know that it is still possible, that I can, and I'm not limited to what is actually happening. So the impacts of gratitude on our mental health is reduces stress, improves physical and mental health, improves self-esteem, strengthens social bonds, and builds resilience. And one of the ways it strengthens social bonds is because a lot of times through past experiences, we've had not so great experiences. And sometimes those narrations, they tell us to not trust, right? Because we are a survival mechanism. And we will oftentimes create narrations of protection, right? We don't want to put ourselves in a situation again. We are afraid of this happening again. And so with resilience and practicing gratitude, it helps us to realize what we did have, what we are still interested in having in relationship. We may just have to change our boundary or the way we show up in this relationship that's different. Because it might not be social connection or relationship that's the problem. It might be that in the different connected ships we have, I call them relationships, connected ships, work ships, friendships, family ships, right? All of these different ways that we're connecting with people. Sometimes we're bringing family ship dynamics and connected ships or work ships, and then we're getting burned because we've exposed too much for people that weren't ready to receive all of that. And then we have these hurt dynamics that happen. So what happens is we use like a hindsight looking back, that it wasn't so much that the connection to people is the problem. It's who I'm connected to and the expectations and the types of relationship I establish or perceive in my head that is showing itself in this relationship. So I just change my boundary, my expectation, my conversation. Maybe I don't tell them too much until I know that they can actually handle it. And maybe I don't say yes to too many things until I know I can actually handle being in relationship with this person. So we start to realize, okay, so it still allows me to have, conversation. So I build relationship off of conversation, or I do a lot of brunching, or I do happy hours, right? So I start to realize those things might be the positive in those spaces and places, little, some really good things happen. So I change the way I socially interact. And being grateful for those things, I can go back in without dragging the hurt and overshadowing the idea that connection is the problem. It's not actually the connection, right? I'm being really clear, bringing in clarification and understanding. It lessens stress, anxiety, and depression because it does bring a lot more clarity. Gratitude, there was a study around gratitude and appreciation, and participants that felt grateful showed a reduction in their levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Um, and this assisted in stronger cardiac function. And these individuals also showed more resilience when it came to emotional setbacks and negative experiences. So gratitude allows us to handle stress a little bit better because we start to realize, even though circumstances and situations are happening, it's not really stopping us. It might drag us, it might slow us, but it doesn't kind of kill us or kill the dream or stop the possibility of other options and opportunities. It slows the effects of neurodegeneration and leads to a decrease in inflammation and lower blood pressure. It has all kinds of mental and emotional benefits when it comes to regulating the body, right? Even the ability to breathe, as I was saying, like the constricting that sometimes happens when everything feels so negative and daunting. But when you feel possibility and options and opportunity, the body responds to the mind, and the mind responds to the breathing sometimes that the body brings in. So in doing that, it regulates the overall body's function. And that's how mentally and emotionally and physically, like, they all feed each other. Gratitude can really benefit that. Just seeing and knowing possibility, that survival trigger that wants to save us, it lessens and lowers itself because it doesn't feel like this could be the end. So gratitude, once again, it's not about being happy, but it's about the happiness, right? Happiness is about being happy around the moment. So it's circumstantial, right? It's about being able to be positive in the moments. Learning how to be self-affirming are some of the ways we establish gratitude, looking at the moments, learning how to be positive, even in circumstances are not, and self-affirming in those dynamics, and then also being intentional in establishing an idea of overall well-being. So the reason that we call it a practice of gratitude is because happiness and being positive and grateful, it's not an actual state that you get to and you're forever there, right? Life is going to happen to us no matter what circumstances, situations, adulting, right? It's going to happen. You're going to want to scream. It's going to be frustrating. It's sometimes going to be extremely hard. People will sometimes be icky, right? All of those things are real and true. And your natural instinct is to go into defense mode, right? And also to have those natural human responses of crying and being frustrated and angry and all of those things. So what you're doing is establishing a practice. And the practice, if you can imagine, is almost like just you're developing a pathway to gratitude, right? You're developing a pathway to this state, to this place, that no matter what happens, you have an escape or you have a route to that which allows you to feel like the escape out of the feeling and the heaviness of what might be happening, right? You have another way of seeing this, right? You have another way of feeling your way out of this. A lot of times the reason we focus on the road and not the vehicle, like the thing that makes you happy, the thing that makes you grateful, is because you might do, depending on the different stages of your life and the different life circumstances you have, you might need a different vehicle to get you to that place of gratitude, right? So you might need different mantras, different thoughts, different breathing and grounding techniques. You might need something else to feed you and drive you toward that direction of gratitude. So we want to just focus on the practice, making it an intentional practice of getting there. And over time, knowing that, it becomes this natural way of saying, it's okay, right? And it's okay. And So whether it be death, job loss, new baby, new home, divorce, a new marriage, all of these different circumstances that happen naturally in life, right? You might need a different vehicle toward that state called gratitude, and in a place of peace that gratitude brings, right? So the new mom, she might need to just be grateful for a shower, right? The divorcee might be grateful that there's no screaming, right? So the shower and no screaming, and then the new marriage that wants all of the interaction and no shower in bed for 3 days. Like, everyone's got different expectations and different dynamics of what they would, what makes them happy today. So you're going to need different vehicles depending on the stage. So some things might not work for you. Some things that you're grateful for, you might not care about. The thing that you were grateful for at 25, no one cares at 52, right? Like, so you just want to create that practice to get there and not be focused on the vehicle. The practice is more important than the vehicle. So each day as we practice gratitude, those natural neural pathways in our brain, they strengthen and they become utilized to create this and kind of like brick by brick solidify this path toward gratitude. And in that natural building, you too will become dependent upon and reliant upon your ability to make yourself feel whatever it is that you need to feel, no matter what circumstances and situations life bring. And that's why the practice of it, not the perfecting of, the practice of is more important. So how to begin your gratitude practice? And as usual, it's unique to each person, right? Which is why the practice and building the road is wonderful, but the vehicle you do have to make sure makes sense to you. Because it is unique to each person, as we said, the 25-year-old, the 52-year-old, the person who just got married versus the person divorced. Yeah, their vehicles are all going to be different. They're going to have different bells and whistles inside, right? We all have different requirements and expectations of ourselves and those around us. So I always like to start, once again, in the introspection and self-awareness, right? Because honesty with yourself on where you are is really important. Because if you lie about where you are, it's going to be really hard to get to a place, right, called there, if you kind of keep giving your Uber driver the direction saying you're downtown and you're actually out on a farm, right? So we got to be honest and ground ourselves in our real reality on where we are, what's going on with us, because that honesty is really key and can really help us to have true intentional direction and steps in making that happen. So if you can get your pen and paper, we're going to ask some questions and you can write them down. You can start answering them now, but just so you can start getting some awareness. And this is how we start our practice, being honest and self-aware about ourselves and in the place in the space we are right now today. So here are some of the questions. How do you feel? How do you want to feel? How do you feel about yourself? Right. How do you speak? How do you want to speak? How do you want to speak to yourself? How do you see things? How do you want to see things? How do you see yourself? How does the way we feel, speak, see ourselves, see life and others impact? How does it impact us and those around us? Who is important to you and why? What is important to you and why? What brings you joy, satisfaction, a smile, peace. What prevents you from being grateful? Is it what you believe? What do you believe about yourself, your life, or others that prevent gratitude or positivity? Are you negative, pessimistic, lack hope? Do you expect the worst? Are you afraid of good or having hope? Why do you want to create change? What is the desired outcome? Now, if you pay attention to the questions, we start with, of course, feeling and speaking and seeing things, because in reality, those are the things that establishes your belief system about yourself and the world, right? You live in your five senses, right? You see, you feel, you speak, all of them are somehow connected. Taking in information, what you hear establishes thoughts and feelings about yourself, all of that. And so it also establishes what's important. Sometimes why we're not happy is that we're not living in an integrity and a congruency, right? We're thinking and feeling things, and sometimes we're making things and people important that actually don't have as much of a value to us. And so the people that we really are grateful for, we'll recognize that we might say a lot of negative things or beat ourselves up in front of us, in front of them, which then causes those circumstances and situations in relationship with them to not be so wonderful. So even though I'm very grateful for them, I might not show it, right? I might be saying things to them that don't make them feel it. So then we're having this reciprocal experience, right? Outside of appreciation, which means gratitude and the good and the love and the peace and satisfaction we're looking for, we're actually speaking it out of possibility, right? We might be feeling it out of possibility. We might see ourselves in such a way that we remove ourselves and even being important to ourselves, right? So a lot of these questions bring a lot of clarity on where we are, if we're sometimes in our own way. Are we making things and sadness or even the past more important than it should be, preventing us from moving forward, right? So a lot of these questions are really just to bring in clarity on where we are and if we're in the way. And even the idea that, oh, I finally got out of my way. I am so grateful that I am clear, that I am out of my way, right? And then we just start there, right? So this is a reflection, because whatever we're thinking and feeling inside, it reflects outside. And really the world is a mirror sometimes back to us, right? Thoughts and feelings that we have about ourselves and our lives, they can prevent a lot of the things that we dream of, right? And so we sometimes have to be intentional in bringing ourselves back to dreaming and dreaming with dreams with us in the center of them. So we're being intentional, trying to create real intention. One of the main ways of answering some of those, if some of your answers were, I don't know, or I have to think about it, great. Because I don't know is a start. I don't know is an actual answer. That means that we have a direction now, right? Usually back to self, but I don't know usually is direction. So instead of chasing and running and going, okay, let's sit here and figure out what we do know. And what we do know is that if we just observe our everyday lives, that a lot of the answers we're seeking on the outside are right here in front of us, inside of us and in front of us. So taking some time to gain clarity of our truth through observation is how we answer some of those questions. And actually, observation is really good in general. That's the whole intention of gratitude, being mindful and being observant to be mindful of that which is and not seeking and chasing that which is not. Okay. Start connecting with people, but do it with more intention. What happens when you're connected with others, right? What happens, what has happened in the past, and does the past cloud your present experience when you are connected with others? Are you hypervigilant? Are you concerned? Are you constantly in question of yourself or other people's intentions, right? How does the past impact the present? And does your present experiences sometimes cloud and impact your ability to think or see the future in a different or more positive way? Does it impact your feelings about others? Does it impact your behaviors toward others or even toward yourself? Gratitude has the ability to strengthen and improve relationships as well as promote new connections. Like I was saying, once we become aware of how we are and how some of the past experiences might be impacting today, we might be able to show up in a different and unique way, actually with intention to create the type of relationship dynamics we really want, right? Sometimes people have parents and they're like, oh my gosh, they're stuck in 1920. Okay, what is it that you want? We know we probably can't have a very progressive relationship with them, but what is it that you do want? I want connection and I want them to tell me they love me. Cool. Let's try to figure out how to make that connection work so that you can still be grateful, because when you're not around them, you feel guilty. They've not done a whole lot of things. Now, some people, they do have to separate, but sometimes they're like, I just can't stand what it is that they say. I don't like some of their beliefs. I just want to be around them, and all of that off the table. Great. Let's be intentional about the type of connection so that you still find some good in this connection and move forward within that intention. All right. It shows that practice of gratitude is more likely to offer emotional support. People that have gratitude are more likely to show and offer emotional support and assistance. And that's because they don't believe they're losing anything by doing that. They're also really clear on what they're giving and why, right? Which is why grounding yourself in yourself is always important, because you'll realize I'm a natural giver. I'm not losing anything by giving. Now, what I don't do is pay rent, but I might buy dinner, right? Like, I'm really clear on what it is that I give. And so I give with freedom, and I give emotional support as well, because I don't create this expectation I'm going to solve, but I will support, right? And I always tell people help and support are two different things. Help means that you might be a part of it, right? Help requires some hands-on. Support means I'm here, I'm cheering you on, I'll give you some words, I'll give you direction, but it's your work to do, right? So I really learn who and what I am in relationship with people, and I value that. I know how I'm showing up. I know what's expected of me and what I'm willing to do with that. That doesn't mean I have to take it on. So it becomes a little bit easier. There's a confidence, there's a knowing, right? There's a knowing also of the level of resilience. Like, my back is not strong enough to carry all of you, but my words are powerful enough to inspire you, right? So I show up with the words. I don't show up with my back, right? So I am intentional with the level of resilience and the level of gifts and skills that I have. And so I show up willingly, right? And the individuals are also willing to forgive. And I always, once again, clarify what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not forgetting and letting things go and reconnecting as if we didn't just have this whole situation, right? If people they made a mistake, not a problem. We can deal with it. We can confront it. We can say how to make sure this doesn't happen again. But if we have a pattern and we recognize that a person, this is just who they are, right? And when I am in relationship with them, this is the outcome and the impact on me. What we are doing is we're forgiving ourselves to release, right? I am forgiving myself the gift of release of this person, the circumstance, the situation, this pattern, right? I always say, visualize and imagine packing up all of what they've given you, sending it back. So long. I don't have to stick around and wait for for heaven and earth and hell to swallow them, and heaven, to open up, and the angels to say how wonderful and great I did with that. No, we don't have to do all that. Forgiveness is for you to allow yourself the release to let go and move on so that you can do all the things that you need to do, because, and that's why the awareness is important, because you are valuable and important, not just to the one thing or the one person, but you're valuable and important to yourself, right? You are valuable and important to others, right? All these people that you're showing up, that you have these connections with, all of these systems, relationships, connectedships, workships, organizationships, all of these people, you start to be grateful for the way you show up, and you realize they're grateful for the way that you show up and how you support and how your intellect and your vision and all of that is beneficial. So what forgiveness is releasing you to be all of these things, right? And so gratitude, I am so grateful that all of these wonderful people recognize and make space for me to show up in this way, and I give, and then they reciprocate, right? So I forgive and release so that I can move forward and continue to be, right? Being more helpful and generous, right? As I said, because they don't believe they're losing anything. They appreciate themselves and they appreciate others. One of the things to do is just be mindful in those places of what is happening when you show up, who is around, how are you benefiting, how are others benefiting? Do you desire more of this connectedship? Do you desire less? Now, some individuals, we have to be mindful of, they might have social anxiety, but if they still want connection, then we just say, okay, we know that there's something wonderful that feeds you, that you become extremely happy about connecting with people, but you have a limit. So how do we establish for yourself the ability to connect with someone or connect with the group? Give yourself an hour. As soon as the social anxiety starts to kick in, you can go back and then find your space, whether it be your home or wherever that place is, right? And allow yourself to connect in the ways that benefit you, so you don't starve yourself from the thing that gives you joy or peace, and expands your conscious ability to say, there are things and people and places that I am grateful for and that are grateful for me. We can find a way to still connect, but we can still do it in a way that benefits you. And that's also something to be grateful for. Once again, that option, right? Giving myself options and opportunities, choice, right? Empowering yourself. Because it can lessen depression and anxiety. There was a study done at Virginia Commonwealth University that showed that practicing gratitude can lower depression and anxiety, some other dependencies, whether it be nicotine, alcohol, drugs, and that's also because you're re-engaging with a lot of other things and people. You realize that the thing you're constantly worried about is not the only thing that exists. So you're expanding your life. Right. And so it also helps you when you're in these spaces and places, observing, when do you feel stressed and anxious? When are you depressed? When do you feel grateful? Is it when someone shows up? Is it when you're able to leave? What are some of the activities that are happening? Do you feel do you feel gratitude and you're able to see, the world in its greatest possibilities on the beach, or when you're at a ballet, or when you're at a concert? Is it music? Is it creativity? Is it when you're by yourself and you're in a creative space, right? What are the things that you find allow you to have these conversations with yourself? And when you're having that conversation, it starts to expand into all the wonderful people and spaces and possibilities that make life worth living, right? And this will definitely help improve self-esteem, because you also realize that there are lots of good and great and wonderful things in the world, and you've been a part of it, right? Some of these things are wonderful because you're a part of it. Being intentional and focused. Practice small. Sometimes if you've been doing this, you can just add things and expand, but practice small. Because if it becomes too much and it feels like work, naturally that kind of that shutdown that brain does, because it's overwhelmed, it'll naturally kick in. And we don't want it to kick it in when we're trying to feed it something great and wonderful, right? So we want to practice small. It could be one thing every day. And I always say start in the morning, because when there's something that happens in the morning that makes intention almost like a sticky, right, with a pen in it, and you always come back to it no matter what. If you veer off from it, if something happens, if you go into the office and something crazy happens, if you're on the train and it's a lot of chaos, there's something about getting up in the morning and saying, today I am going to do something wonderful for someone, right? And I'm going to make them smile. and I'm going to be grateful for the smile I put on someone's face. So in that intention, no matter what's going on, no matter how much noise or interactions you might have, right? If your boss isn't doing great that day, or if you're, the person next to you has a lot going on, there's going to be an energy shift that's going to feel like something's not right, right? It's going to feel like you're being pulled out and away from your intention, right? So establishing an intention in the morning has a way of keeping you on track, on that path. And then when the shifts happen, it's like an alert to say, this is not what we told ourselves, right? This is not what we said. So it's a real good way of putting yourself on that path with the intention and keeping you on there no matter what. Now, you still might be pulled off, but you're going to feel that. And so you'll recognize someone's bringing me energy that's not my energy. I'm not taking it on. I have a mission today, right? And then you will stay somehow unintentionally focused. And when John's doing all his things, you're like, yeah, that's John. That's usually John, right? That's one of those things about being intentional and focused. You start to recognize how people naturally show up and what you are naturally doing in the way that you're showing up. So you'll realize that's John's energy. John can have his energy. I'm going to let John have his energy, and I'm going to continue on my path doing the things that I do. And when an opportunity of doing good or smiling, you might do it all the way to work. You might say hello to people on the street. You might, buy someone a coffee, whatever it is, you will be in a space and a place to resonate that intention. And there's something about seeing other people smile. There was a study that said the giver actually receives more of a benefit than the giver. And the giver actually receives from the experience of the person that received. Right. So when you give and the person responds, it's almost like my intention landed, that goal was met, and you see it, it does feed back to you. You are powerful enough to cause shift and change. You are powerful enough to impact not just yourself, but another, or a day, or a circumstance, whatever that is. And so that circle of reciprocity, even if it's not like whatever that person might tell you, because it might land different for them, and it's going to land different for them because it's their belief system that's informing what this gift is that you're giving them, right? Whether it's a compliment, right? Maybe they don't get compliments. So for you to compliment them and see something in them, it means something more than you're just like, I'm just going to be nice and kind today. Well, that's great. And then the person's like, no one ever is. So they're going to receive it in a different way. And then you're going to see that like, oh, wow, open my eyes, get compliments all the time. I am so grateful that I could change someone's life or perspective, or give them that opportunity to be seen and heard in a way they've not been before. And this is important. I talk about one of the things this does as well. It helps you to learn how to affirm. And we're going to go to the next slide. It teaches you how to affirm others, and that affirming others is a real benefit, right? So affirming self and others expands the world of good and possible within ourselves and beyond. It is a self-appreciation, a gratitude journal, and gratitude journaling actually is a way that if we can't think and visualize and keep it here, the writing makes it real, right? There's something about writing that makes a thing real. So having a gratitude journal, some people out, they'll say, oh, I journal. I'm like, if you're rehashing your whole day and it was miserable, oh, that is not good for the mind, right? So you want to have a gratitude journal that expands that consciousness to the other possibilities of just life happening. And that can also help you to have self-appreciation. You start to see how you respond to things, how you deal with things. It helps you to have a different understanding of yourself, but also others, right? A gratitude buddy, maybe someone that's your hype man. My daughter is a super wonderful hype man. All her friends always talk about, she's such a good hype man. She's always got my back. Yeah, The thing that no one else sees, she's going to see, and she's going to appreciate it about you. But it does expand your world when you affirm others. This goes two ways. Both positive and negative. So self-affirming and self-destruction, right? Self-affirming is on the other side, and self-affirming can actually overcome a lot of that self-destruct, that internal self-destruct conversation, but also the negative pessimistic dynamics that people often put out. I practice self-affirming and have practiced it for a long time. Because I watched my grandmother do it, so I do it, and I just started seeing my kids do it. They will literally be in the mall and tell people how much, oh, I love your bag. Oh, your hair looks so good today. Oh, your makeup is amazing. And it just changes a person's world. You don't know me, and yet like you saw all the work that I put into this, right? Like, and so of course my daughter does the makeup thing, so she knows how much work I take 2 minutes. So she's always like affirming people, and they're like, yes, my 10 hours make sense today. Right. But it really does change people's perspectives about themselves, right? When I see a grandmother, I'll affirm her. If I see someone who I know got to be in the 80s, but looking like 52, I'm like, ma'am, yes, like you did it. You are still doing it, right? It just changed. They walk, if you watch them walk away, like they walk a little bit different, right? So that's really important to do. And it's also, it helps you to start to recognize things about yourself and others, right? So sometimes it's hard for people to self-affirm. It becomes easier for them to affirm in others. And you start to realize some of the things you like about others are actually the things that you have as well. So why not love them in yourself? Sometimes they're the things that we talk a lot of trash about in others are also things in us. So we start to realize, and I always use the talkative dynamic, right? Like if we see someone and they're doing a lot of talking, and we usually like, oh my God, they talk so much, I can't stand it. And someone else starts to see, as they practice gratitude, this person is very confident. They don't actually care that anyone else is is getting, they're aware that everyone else is she's driving them nuts with all of the talking. But they actually are falling into her stories. They actually enjoy how confident she is in this ridiculous story. Like, this is amazing as I'm watching it, right? And so what sometimes we'll do is realize the reason we don't like what it is that we're seeing in another person is because it's been negatively narrated within ourselves, right? Someone has told us it's negative, it's bad, that it shouldn't be there. And so we project it out on others, right? But as we practice gratitude, we might see that there's more to it, that this person's confident, that they have something to say, that their voice is valuable. And so maybe I should start doing that for myself as well, instead of just kind of negatively on other people. I should give space. I should start appreciating. I should start recognizing that there is some good in utilizing my voice, right? So that affirming others can sometimes self-affirm for us and allow us to see ourselves and re-narrate ourselves, even within ourselves. So that gives us something else to be grateful for, right? I recognize that I am important, my voice is important, other people's voices are important. So that affirming self and others, it really changes the way we even make space and appreciation for other people. So resilience. Resilience is a tool, and resilience actually is about you. And resilience is the thing that we actually can build on to continue to feed gratitude. And I'm so sorry. One of the ways that I tell people to start building resilience is through a practice of hindsight. And that's because we don't give ourselves enough credit, which is why a lot of us don't have a lot of resilience language to affirm ourselves and be grateful for who we are. Because we live in the world and we're constantly moving and surviving, that we don't realize that all of this adulting and all the things we have to do to make this life happen, sometimes we've mastered it in such an unconscious way that we don't realize all the things it takes just to do and to be us every day. but appreciating those little small things and being aware of them every single day, no matter how small they are, right? Even if it's I got up today, because some people it was just too hard, right? I pushed through, right? I didn't smack John at the deli for yelling at me the third time this week, right? Like that takes a lot of resilience, right? So those things we sometimes don't pay attention to. So I always say, resilience is the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. The ability to spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. And so the self-awareness through hindsight is one of the ways I have people go back and recognize so many of their different resilience qualities that show up or has shown up in the past that they've probably narrated or left in the shadows of yesterday. So one of the things I do is just visualize or imagine you are in a basketball game. The last few seconds, it's you got you got the ball, you got to get in the basket, you could win this, it's the championship game, you could do it, right? And yet it didn't happen, right? The buzzer, everyone's, making all the noises, you hear all the naysaying, the commentators, they got the cameras going, talking about all the shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe, mights, right? Everyone's crying, the team's devastated, you're crying. It's a lot, right? It was a lot. But what you've done over these last few years is just narrated, I couldn't make it happen. I'm a loser, we lost, it was so devastating, I let the team down, right? Like all of these negative narrations, right? And a lot of times this is what we do to ourselves. We negatively narrate off of a moment. And then we continue to say, this is who I am, right? Or because of the circumstance, situation, or this is who I am, this is what I do. Well, if we go back and we realize that you have played 140 something games in this season. Most of the people on your team are injured or not able to play for a number of reasons, which means you weren't playing with a full healthy team. You're playing with a lot of folks that never been in this type of championship game before, let alone a game, right? You had 3 people blocking you because they knew if you got this, it would be all over, right? You got the other guys running around you, creating confusion. You got the folks in the stands yelling, throwing stuff. You got them doing the whole little distractor things that they have. You got the coaches on both sides yelling. You can't hear your coach. You can't hear the guys on your bench yelling because they know you can't hear the coach because the other team's also yelling. You got what I call the naysayers. And to me, hindsight is like the sideline commentators. They're seeing all of this and they're saying all the things that they would do and they're not doing anything. And they've been 300-400 pounds like the last 20 some years, but they're saying all the things that they would do and what should be done, right? Like they're doing all the sideline commentating, right? And then painting you in this horrible picture, right? Not taking into consideration anything other than their ability to be grand, right? This is what hindsight does. It's like always saying the shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe, mights, and what you should do, because hindsight is like the 52-year-old telling the 25-year-old self what it should have done and what it should have known, when a lot of what the 52-year-old knows didn't happen till 33, right? Like you can't judge yourself by what you know now because you were not that person at that time, nor did you have the full capacity or the information, right? So that's what hindsight is. And it's seeing all of this, but it's not taking into consideration any of it, right? So if we go back, we'll realize that there's 3 guys, I can't get anywhere. They're running around, they're stopping the guy I'm trying to give the ball to from actually getting to me. There's all kinds of noise. I can't hear anything. There's lots of pressure, right? And then I've got a basketball, I got a shoe deal that's on the line. I got this house that my partner wants, right? Like all of these things are happening and there's multiple levels of pressure that's happening in this very moment. And I didn't take any of that into consideration. My ability to push through, my ability to keep trying, my ability to not elbow someone and cause a foul, right? And so even after that, when I was feeling bad, I checked on everyone. I made sure they were okay. I was at home for 3 weeks and I was crying off and on while my body was trying to recover. And I didn't want to go back in the gym or do it again. And yet I checked on everyone. I still made sure my family was okay. I still made sure I showed up to all the business meetings, and maybe the number was a little different on that shoe deal. Like, I still pushed through. But what happens is, a lot of times with hindsight, we just narrate about the negative and we don't recognize all the things that make us resilient, and all the times we tried again and we kept going and we never gave up, and we're a great teammate and we're a great friend and we're a great partner and we're a great and son or daughter. Like, we've got to go back and recognize all of the things that are great and wonderful about us, because then that helps us to recognize what's so wonderful about us, what other people are grateful for about us, and what we can appreciate about ourselves. So resilience and knowing the things that we've been able to utilize within ourselves, those traits that we depend on, helps us to feed that gratitude practice, and keep us going. So daily practices: gratitude journaling, remembering the negative and realizing growth and change and resilience, grounding and body scanning, awareness, breath work, anchoring at the beginning of the day. That makes it real, and that feeling it, right? Not just breathing and writing it, but the feeling it makes it really real. That also helps to recognize when we're going throughout the day. That helps us to recognize something shifting, because that breathing changes and that feeling is starting to shift, right? Visualize and revisit of good and pleasant, savoring moments, right? Going back to not just realizing I lost, but going back to recognize the teamwork, what it felt like to depend on others and them to depend on me. What was it like to call someone and they so appreciate my call, right? What did that feel like? What does go back and visualize that? What am I actually bringing when I come into relationship and into rooms? Be mindful of what you say to yourself, that I am versus I experienced or I survived, right? I survived the loss, I experienced the loss, but I am not lost. I persevere beyond, right? Focus on your language. Practice gratitude actions and manifest visualizations of good and gratefulness. All right, so time for you to start your gratitude experiments. Any questions? Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Nancy, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to go back to that one slide where the quote, the slide on resilience. And what was the quote that Jean Baptiste was saying on the bottom there?
Okay, let me go back.
Because that is like, I think something in a little kernel in a nutshell.
When they were talking about the roses and the thorns.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, I am.
Run behind. Yeah, here we go.
Roses have thorns. I am grateful that thorns have roses. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely learned a lot from this.
Yeah. No, it's always, yes. I agree. I mean, it's just so much to unpack every time we listen to you, Dr. Shelton. But does anybody have a immediate response to the talk as or immediate feeling about it?
Well, if there is no immediate feeling or response to the talk, I'd like to thank Dr. Shelton for always bringing us so much great informative knowledge. Who would think that gratitude and resiliency were tied in? And who would think that there's so many things that we can do to show gratitude, not to ourselves only, but to others, even those that we don't know. I love this example of just, walking through the mall and, giving that compliment, and even watching the change in demeanor for people who you compliment. It doesn't hurt to give a compliment, especially in this holiday season. So thank you so much, Dr. Shelton, for just providing us with so many tools and tips that we're going to take back into this holiday season and beyond, of course, and hopefully in our daily practices.
Yes, yes. And I love that too, Sandrine, your resilience and your feeling of gratitude, it isn't given that we receive, and so complimenting others, it comes back to you tenfold, because if we could if we could really see the impact of when we give somebody the gift of a compliment, or just point out something that they probably never realized about themselves, if we could see what that does further down the line with that individual, and the kind of energy that surrounds that individual as a result of that compliment, it's like a pay it forward, like that goes out into the world and it keeps multiplying. So you have such a powerful force within you. But we sometimes forget what it's really all about down here on planet Earth. And I think it's just amazing in the sense that we can recontextualize our life. And as you said, I like the idea of gratitude is a practice, and you're setting that template up in that neuroplasticity of the brain, where you repeat, you keep learning to keep seeing the picture differently and seeing the good that's coming out of every single situation. And by reconstructing all of that, by continuously applying that, we just raise our vibrations, and we actually create a path of creating a creative life. That is what we want, based on our values and our intentions. So thank you so much. There's just so much. I mean, I'm going to start that gratitude journal. I've had it in the past, but really start to kind of go back to that practice.
Yep. And that one thing I wanted to add is that I really agree, like, with the like just doing little things to put smiles on people's faces, because that is actually something, like you hit on the head for me, because it's like that's something that I actually like to do for people. Like, even if it's like, if I know they like a certain type of candy and I'm there in the store, I'll pick it up for that person, especially if I know I'm going to see them. And just, just to be like, I was thinking of you. I saw this, and it's like that smile and, like, or that shocked look. I love that. And that actually makes me feel better.
Yeah. And if you could see the energetic exchange just for that reason. But I love the idea too of starting the day with an intention. What is this day going to unfold, and how do I want it to unfold? That is so powerful.
Yes.
Some people sit and they read spiritual books, or they read things that are just very life affirming in the morning, and it sets the tone. How do I want to see my life creatively? Who's the person I really want to be here? How can I show up? What do I want to be for myself, and what do I want to be for others, as we're all kind of reflecting on? So we've got a lot to do when we go into this Thanksgiving. You're right, Sandrine. Hey, and put everything in perspective, the good and bad,
Yes.
Thank you.